Understanding the student learning outcomes and their rubrics. I have copied these student learning outcomes from the Accreditation Board of Engineering and Technology. This is the 5 learning outcomes for the engineering technology programs. So if you want to be accredited by them, you have to make sure that your student learn these 5 learning outcomes. Now these 5 learning outcomes, as you can see, that generally student takes about 120 to 150 credits. There are multiple different curricular components, many courses, internship, junior design, senior design. All of those components are designed to make sure that they get these 5 things. So therefore, you can imagine that they're not just actually 5, they're multi-construct, multi-dimensional. So understanding these learning outcomes are very, very important in assessing a student appropriately, also using the appropriate rubrics, the assessment rubric. So if you look at the number 1, so I have break down this number 1 learning outcome, where you can see ability to apply knowledge, techniques, skills, and model tools of mathematics, science, engineering, and technology to solve broadly defined engineering problems. So this is a very complex, multi-dimensional learning outcome. You cannot simply use a course grade or an overall performance to see how students are doing on this particular learning outcomes. And you can do this, however, you won't be able to see whether a student, if you want to see whether a student can apply mathematics or science or engineering or technology solving problems, you have to assess them separately. You have to have separate rubrics, assessment rubric for each of these constructs. For example, let's say in automotive program, they're designing the car, the speed, whatever they're doing. A lot of time I see students come to me and say, hey, I really understand this concept, but I really don't know how to do the math. For example, engine design, the gas or the fuel is burned inside the engine. There is a chemistry. So sometimes I see students are saying, I understand how it works, but I really don't know the chemistry. So that's science. If you want to know how they're applying their mathematics, their science, the courses they take at the lower level, those prepare for them to be a good engineer. Now, there is a reason for taking those math classes, chemistry classes, physics classes, so that in solving problems, they can apply them in solving engineering problem. So you can't simply just use let's say, a senior design project, how many students get A, how many students get B, that kind of course grade, which is the most commonly misused piece in assessment of student learning, to justify this learning outcome. There is no diagnostic value. So reading learning outcomes is very important. And you can look at any program. They are very complex written. So break it down, the learning outcome, in a way so it has some diagnostic value. We constantly see our students have, especially in the automotive engineering technology or any engineering program, that the lack of the ability of understanding and applying the basic science and mathematics to solve engineering problem. So therefore it needs to be break it down. Sometimes we see that the knowledge, techniques, skills, modern tools, they could be break it down as well. There are difference between knowledge, techniques, skills, and modern tools. You can do that too. However, it depends on the assessment. So you just probably start with this, breaking down this 4 category, and then you see there is some real issue with the mathematics, then you can probably next year you can revise the rubrics in mathematics, maybe knowledge, techniques, skills in mathematics, and you can break it down into another 4 categories. But to start with, definitely for this engineering technology learning outcome, the 5 learning outcomes, the number 1 learning outcome, it should be broken down into 4 categories, so that in science, mathematics, and engineering and technology, so that we know where they're lacking, what we need to focus to provide them better learning opportunity. This is the direct assessment of a student learning outcomes. I will upload this document, so if you want you can download it, use it for yourself. Then the indirect assessment is also important. It is very, very important for us to know how our students feel about their learning. Do they feel confident in mathematics, science, engineering, on each of these learning outcomes? So it is very important to know how they feel about this. You don't get this information doing this direct assessment as an instructor when you're teaching this class. So understanding a student is also very important, what they feel about these different components, how confident are they to apply and solve engineering problems. The next piece of assessment sometimes is used, the standardized test, the FE exam, the fundamental of engineering exam. It actually provides some diagnostic value. You can see the weaknesses in different areas, so they will provide some diagnostic value, so you can use them as well. To summarize, in any of this learning outcome, if you read carefully, they have multiple different things. So you have to have a separate breakdown for each of them. I have also produced video for every single of these and the rubrics, and it's also uploaded in the openeducator.com, or you can email me. I can send you these rubrics if you want. You can Google. There are basically someone developed it already, so you really don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's just a matter of knowing that they're kind of multi-construct, multi-dimensional, so you can't just simply use course grade or overall performance on each of these learning outcome. They must be break it down into components so that it has some diagnostic value, and then you can use those to see the weaknesses and strength, and then do something about it to provide the best learning experience possible to these students.